Salam, صبح بخیر. Hello, bonjour, guten Tag. That's are my language skills to say hello. And I would like, before everything, thank Hof, Sylvia, and all of the colleagues at the chair for the workshop. And I think Gelen and Eric made the scene quite ready for me. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed and learned a lot. Today, I'm going to talk about the food security, food systems, and based actions, and hopefully I can keep the time, but I'm sure that Hof would raise his hand whenever I'm overdue. As many of you may know, food security means all people at all time have physical access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food for an active and healthy life. It has got 3 dimensions: availability, access, utilization, and stability. As you know, at least 3 SDGs are related to food security, and why we as consumers, as food industry, are very great amount of food every day. There are more than 800 million who are suffering from the hunger, 1 in 6 people worldwide. As you may know, that the way that we define our problems or issues direct the way that we define our solution. And I think we can categorize our approach in 2 big groups, whether we are defining food security as a biological issue or as social issue, whether we see the causes of food as some isolated determinants or causes, or we are looking at them as a network of causes who are leading to food security. And in terms of process, whether we see a simple linear link between cause and food security or insecurity, or we see them as a complex nonlinear process involved. It will define our approach, whether we are going to a direction that we are focusing on improving nutrition status of individuals, or we are aiming for improving food system. Are we looking for changing just few elements, independence, or we are thinking of changing many causes at the same time simultaneously? Are we looking at simplistic approach, or we are looking for a complexity-informed approach? There are more and more researchers who are advocating for having a system lens for defining many public issues, including food security. From this lens, we can define food insecurity as an emergent product of different components that we could categorize them in 3 big ones: factors, actors, and interactions. Actors means any person who in a way is involved in food security. It can be producers to consumers and also organization. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that these people have attributes that influence their actions. They have knowledge, skills, lived experiences, cultures, family structure, and also factors. Factors could be as diverse as natural environment, built food environment, policies, politics, infrastructure, and also the growing human population. And the 3rd group are interdependencies, not only within actors, within factors, but also between actors and factors. If we go deep into the causes of food security, we could see some grouping of the causes that we could call them network causes of food security. Here, I think these are 4 key network or entangled causes of food insecurity. It's low literacy, poverty, deprivation, that all will ending in living in poor neighborhoods, that they would influence all dimensions of food insecurity. Our advanced understanding of food insecurity in current century, it seems that now we have realized that we need to have more holistic understanding, systems thinking based understanding of the food insecurity, consider them as a social complex phenomenon with a network causes, and pay attention to the entangling factors like poverty, deprivation, literacy, and poor neighborhood. But in terms of lessons, it seems that our experiences, collective research and experiences, observation shows that there is no single, easy or fast solution. We need a combination of science and action. And of course, action includes education, policy, services, and support. And actions, as Gelen also mentioned, at different level that we would like to focus on community level today, that will lead us to emerging bottom-up community-based food system approach. Looking at the global experiences and literature, we could say that different theoretical and also practical type of community food security interventions that we have access to them are in three groups: agricultural interventions that they aim to improve food access, that they are in line of food growing and increasing the productivity of farming and sustainability and quality of food. There are many types of interventions. The second group are nutritional interventions that they aim to improve food access and utilization. And the third one, income generation intervention or investment support programs. And I think we as public health experts are more familiar with the second one, while I will show you later that in our systematic review, it seems that agricultural interventions are more successful than nutritional interventions, while I believe that the third one are next. There are many settings available at the community that we can implement our intervention. It can be homes, streets, community space, slums, rural areas, schools, worksite, churches, stores, prisons, any setting that people come together to live, to work, to learn, to enjoy, whatever. So depending on which aspect of food security we are going to intervene, so we will have different kind of strategies. But I will elaborate later that the community level and community-based interventions can address most of the dimensions at the same time. So here we are with big numbers of interventions. How we are going to choose? Should I provide free food to address food security, or should I go for establishing a farming? I think before selecting our interventions, we need really to think deeply, what's our goal? Are we going to just provide a temporary relief for hungry people, or are we aiming for sustainable solutions? Are we aiming to address just one aspect, say, for example, access, or multiple dimensions, available food, accessible, affordable, and stable food? Most importantly, I think it's very key to think about whether our interventions are disempowering people, demoralizing them, or they are empowering targets. Providing free food to people, how much it makes them feel empowered compared to helping them to create or produce their own food. At the same time, it's important to think of whether we are looking for an immediate effect or short-term effect, or impact, which be long-term effects that I think in food security would be improving food security, and from the community-based lens, empowering communities. Although you can see several papers or talks about the community, food security and community, but it seems that people have different approach to community. In some occasions, the food security improvement is for the community, and sometimes it's through the community. And less popular or less frequent one is food security with the community, and finally by the community. I would like to call the first two groups as the traditional community food security programs, and the two last as modern based food programs. There are quite different, significant difference between these two groups in terms of role of community, perception of community, experts' responsibility, and examples. In traditional one, the role of community just to be a passive target. We go and knock on the door, and they open the door, and they receive the food, or the food coupons that we have provided for them. But in community-based food programs, we see community as an active partner. In traditional community food programs, communities are considered as a problem or as a group that have a problem. But in community-based food program, we consider or we observe, we approach community as a solution or a group who own the solution, group that they own the knowledge, they own the experience, resources, and so they can and they should provide solutions. Expert responsibility in the first group is just increasing the coverage of service utilization. Looking at the food security reports, there are numbers, how many people they have been received are. But in community-based food programs, our responsibility as experts is strengthening community action to fight food insecurity. So the strategies would be different. So we have in the first group, the normal popular programs like supplementary feeding, food aid, but in community-based food programs, we have empowerment, we have food growing farms, and etc. Many of you are from the health promotion background, so you are familiar with Ottawa Charter. Strengthening community action is key actions for improving people's health. It means that we need a new mindset that help us to shift from the problem of community to assets of community, from informing or utilization of services by community to power sharing with community. So that's the only way that people and communities can be empowered to take actions. Gillian has touched on many reasons why to foster community participation. I would like just to highlight two of them, which is the program and more sustainability. But I think there are some avenues that we haven't been that much shedding light on them. That's one of them is mobilizing and organizing community assets for food security. These assets, I think, have been relatively, I can't say ignored, but I can say there are much more that we can use from them. That's natural local food resources, the community's culture, religion, women and elderly, and as also Gillian mentioned, ownership. I will just give you two examples. The photo that you see is for a plant that's called Rosa canina, that interestingly in Persian is called Nastaran. That's my first name. And it's just a few years that I realized that I read few papers about that is quite rich in vitamin C. And the vitamin C per amount of this flower is more than citrus. During the COVID-19, many people are buying vitamin C tablets to provide to add the vitamin C intake. This plant is growing in many countries, including my country, where no education or no support or no encouragement for people that, look, you can use these free resources around yourself. That's one example. Other assets that I think there are in communities, but we need to mobilize them and channel them into avenues that lead to food security is culture. In many cultures, you have food-related or voluntary type of traditions, values, and ceremonies. All this can be tapped into and be utilized for improving food security. For our tradition, Iranian tradition, cooking food and sharing food with your neighbors in different occasions quite normal. These can be channeled. That I can say that nowadays many people are doing that. So they cook food, but they do not share it with neighbors. They go and provide it for people who are in need of food. Religion, most of communities have their own religion, and I'm sure that in most religions, you can find religious beliefs and practices that can help addressing food security. For example, in Islam, we have one sentence from Prophet Muhammad that says, "One is not my follower if he sleeps full while he's hungry." These kind of assets, especially collaborating with religious leaders, they can be helping us to motivate and mobilize community to take action. And the rest, that's because of time, I'm just going back. Both from the architecture science and also from the city-related science, there are more talk about the urban agriculture that I think is quite relevant to food security. So it's not just a rural area that can be used for producing food. Nowadays, urban farming, urban agriculture is quite food manuals that if in future you wanted to start or implement, design a community-based food producing program, you can use it. And as you see, one of them, which is related to a school gardens, we have translated, and I'm sure that it can be translated in different language as well and distributed to a few cities. Also, home gardening, as you see here on the left side, that's the website of the Australian government, especially during the COVID-19. They are encouraging people to think of home gardening, not only for food security, also for men. Photo of a guy in Bangladesh who is producing food at his house roof. And the downside is for building in Iran. And our right side, again, that's one of the famous roof gardens in Iran, that's grapes. And I think each year he produces tons of grapes. So these kind of opportunities and spaces can be used for producing food. Last year, we published a paper which we did with a group of colleagues reviewing of community-based food security interventions. What's the scope, what are the characteristics, and more importantly, which type of interventions have more chance of success. Many dimensions of the food security were examined, but the only dimension who was not evaluated was food stability. We found total 12 community-based intervention. A range of interventions were utilized that you can read the paper, but we found out that the agriculture interventions were more successful than nutritional interventions. Security. Also, we realized that few settings only have been used as a setting for implementation, household or local store. And again, although we had many partners who theoretically could have been involved, just few groups of partners were involved. But for me, and I think also for Gelen, it would be interesting to see that none of these papers reported any challenges in implementing community-based. And I think maybe one reason is that in two studies, there were no participation of community, although the title was community. Study that they had community participation, none of them had it in planning phase. They had it for just receiving or sustaining the program or implementing. For us who are going to engage people, I think it would be useful to think of the influencing factors on community action. That's something that I thought maybe it can categorize what I mean. To me, it seems that at least 3 factors should be there. Community should want, community should be able, and community should find the action easy to do that. And each of them are influenced by other factors. But good news is that all of these, so the motivation, the barriers, the difficulty level, all could be improved by combination of education, mentoring, support, and resources. Unfortunately, what I have observed in the last 2 decades that I've been working with communities is that we just go and do the education and leave the community, but they need continuous mentoring, continuous support, and resources until they are empowered enough to be independent of our action. There are many types of participation, contribution that community members can do. All we are familiar with NGOs and volunteers, but I would like just to focus on two less utilized one. That's first is the local education and research organization. They can contribute to our community-based programs by providing tools, practices, especially for women, and also the private sector, corporates, entrepreneurs. As you see, we have one lady in Iran, Shirin Parsi. She has changed the way that in farming is going any job. So we need to think of beyond NGOs and volunteers for community members and taking up their contribution. So I'm just going to finish my talk with a few more slides. Community-based food system, I think, could be a parallel alternative to industrial food system, at least for three main reasons. First, they can address a combination of causes, not just single one. They can produce food in a healthy, environmentally and culturally appropriate, also economically affordable, and they can use better of local resources, natural local food, mental health, and social health. But of course, they have some challenges and disadvantages. One of them is that it's time consuming. Establishing a community kitchen is much more easier than establishing a community gardening. So for a stronger community action to address food insecurity, these are my take-home messages. First, we need to pay attention that community needs capacities to be empowered for action. Capacities include cognitive skills, economic tools, power, etc., to produce good quality food. And if cannot produce food, they can have access to foods. The second point is that we as health experts need to collaborate more beyond the public health sector. We need to collaborate with agriculture sector, marketing, technology experts. I've been working in a rural area in west of Iran. The farmers, they can produce food, but there is no way that they can sell it. So as long as we are just focusing on nutrition education of the food, there would be a long way to go. And the third point is that we need to know much better the local natural food resources, the local food-related culture and practices, because it's much more cheaper and practical to tap into local resources rather than importing extra resources or food. And finally, that to me, it's more important one is to be careful about this empowering, demoralizing food security interventions. There are some research that shows that external aids, although may provide temporary relief, but in a way, they took the responsibility from the community and they act in a way that might demoralize them, because it gives at the same time this message that, look, you have a problem, but you don't have capacity to address your problem, so you are needing our help. And I would like to leave you with a photo from Iran, and I hope that all of us work together to reach the top of the food security mountain. Thank you very much.